And now it's back to the negotiating table for the U.S. and Iran as both sides again meet in Oman to hold the latest round of nuclear talks. They come just ahead of a visit to the region by Donald Trump. His negotiator, Steve Witkoff, hardening his tone on the issue of uranium enrichment. Here's what Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had to say.
As I have said many times before, if the intention is to ensure that the Islamic Republic of Iran does not have nuclear weapons, this is completely achievable, and an agreement on this is certainly achievable. But if the US have more unreasonable and unrealistic demands that cannot be implemented, it is natural that the negotiations will face difficulties.
We can cross now and speak to Rouzbeh Parsi. He's the head of the Middle East and North Africa program at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Rouzbeh, thank you so much for joining us on this program.
Thank you.
Now, this latest round exposing some frustrations on the part of the Iranians. They say they've been clear on their red lines, which is that they won't abandon enrichment. But now we're hearing that Steve Witkoff, the U.S. negotiator, telling a conservative media outlet that Iran must give up enrichment and dismantle its facilities. So is the U.S. changing the goalposts, or is what is being said publicly different than what's being said in the talks?
All of the above, probably. I think to some degree, this is a matter of the whole negotiation tactic of being very hard, but also it's a question of the fact that they're not in agreement themselves back home. That is, the US position is vacillating between being very hard and being able to actually negotiate, which will require compromises.
Now, Donald Trump, he's still saying that he'd like to reach a deal diplomatically. He hasn't written that off. But with, this sort of competing narrative, shall I say, between both sides, are we moving further away from that?
Well, there is a risk of that. But at the same time, Donald Trump is coming to the region and he's visiting 3 key Gulf allies. And I think the signal he's going to get from them is that they really want these negotiations to be successful. So in that sense, he will be bolstered in whatever instinct he has towards reaching some kind of agreement.
Right. I did want to follow up with that. The Iranian foreign minister there, he had met with officials in Saudi Arabia and Qatar ahead of these talks. And as you just mentioned, Donald Trump is going to be there. He's going to be speaking with Saudi officials. So I'm just wondering what role, if any, are these other officials playing behind the scenes regarding these negotiations?
Well, I think the Gulf countries are going to be key to whatever incentive the Americans are going to be able to offer the Iranians, because even in the best of worlds, you could say that they reach an agreement where the Iranians give up a lot and in return get permanent relief from American sanctions. That is going to take time to actually deliver, and the Gulf countries will be much quicker, if allowed and willing, to offer incentives in economic terms to Iran to do their bit in order to solve this issue.
Now, obviously, Iran really wants these sanctions lifted. That's what's kind of brought them back to the negotiating table, the hope of another form of a deal, similar maybe to the one that Donald Trump ripped up. But their red line is that enrichment. What other concessions might Tehran be willing to offer up to keep talks ongoing?
It depends a bit on what they're willing to give, not only on what they have, but the potential of whatever an agreement can reach in terms of American dividends, let's say economic ones. That is, if Iran is opened up as a market to the US, that can also be an attractive option for the American side. I think the Americans are going to insist on some kind of curbing of the Iranian missile program, and that might be a very difficult point to negotiate because as far as the Iranians are concerned, the missile program is the only actual effective deterrent they have against Israel and a potential war with the United States. So giving that up or curbing it is going to be a very tricky issue to negotiate themselves through.
And finally, I want to bring in the question about Israel. Obviously, they're going to be watching these talks very closely. They have made their views known in the past. What sort of influence are they having on these talks?
Well, they are very influential when it comes to the hardliners within the Trump administration. And when they talk about the Libya model, as it's called, it's basically meaning a total dismantlement of the enrichment program in Iran. And that is, in a sense, it's a no-go and everyone knows it. So it's more either show or a poison pill, as in everyone understands that the Iranians will most likely never be pressured, short of war, into agreeing to that.
Rouzbeh, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining our program. That's Rouzbeh Parsi, head of the Middle East and North Africa program at the Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Moving on to